On this video, we're going to talk about Pythagorean identities. Before we do that, let's learn how to read math. This is sine squared theta, which is the same thing as quantity sine theta times sine theta, which is quantity sine theta squared. So when we say sine squared theta, this is the same thing as quantity of sine theta squared. So if you have tangent cube theta, that is going to be the same thing as quantity tangent theta to the third power. Now, be careful. When you have a sine theta squared, this is not same as quantity sine theta squared. When you have sine theta squared, that is the same thing as sine of theta times theta. Only the theta is being squared. But on this side, this is sine theta times sine theta. So be careful with the notation. Let's take a look at why sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is 1. By the way, this is the most important theorem in trigonometry. So it is, I recommend that you guys memorize this. So you recall that sine theta is y over r, and cosine theta is x over r. And if you look at the triangle, this is x, that's y, and that's r. Using Pythagorean theorem, you know that r squared equals x squared plus y squared. And you divide everything by r squared, you will get 1 equals x squared over r squared plus y squared over r squared, which is the same thing as 1 equals quantity x over r squared plus quantity y over r squared. Now, what is x over r? Well, x over r is cosine theta. So using substitution, you get 1 equals quantity cosine theta squared plus, what is our y over r? Y over r is sine theta. So using substitution, you get quantity sine theta squared. So what is that? That's 1 equals cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta, which is same thing as sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. We just saw why sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is 1. Now, where does these two come from? I'm going to show you where these two came from. So when you have sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1, let's divide everything by sine squared theta. When you divide everything by sine squared theta, well, that becomes 1 plus, what is that? What is cosine squared theta over sine squared theta? That's going to be the same thing as cosine theta, quantity cosine theta over sine theta squared equals 1 over quantity 1 over sine theta squared. So what is that? That becomes 1 plus cotangent squared theta equals cosecant squared theta, which is this right here. Now, instead of sine squared theta, we want to divide everything by cosine squared theta. So what happens when you divide everything by cosine squared theta? You are going to get tangent squared theta plus 1 equals secant squared theta, and which is the same thing as this identity right there. So all you got to do is memorize sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. And you could derive these two identities, whether dividing by everything by cosine squared theta or everything by sine squared theta.